All right, and give us a quick synopsis of exactly what Hip Hop Decoded is about.
Hip Hop Decoded is a metaphysical book dealing with occult signs, symbols, and breaking down also the power, the power structure and how hip hop was powerful at one point and it was gaining spiritual momentum, so to speak, and how it was co-opted for the very purpose of stunting the natural growth of our people who were using what was natural to us, our ability to dance, sing, rap, do art, and bring it all together in an alchemical form. Because each element, which I also did, was I gave each element earth, air, fire, water. So I related it to nature itself. And in doing so, those are the four principles in which alchemy is started. Everything is dealing with earth, air, fire, water. So when I associated those four principles to earth, air, fire, and water, it gave me the ability to show that when we blend them together, it creates a synergy of something else that can lift us out of any situation we in. Hip hop was supposed to be our economic base, our social base, our political base, our spiritual base, if we had contained ownership of it, because hip hop is making more money than anything else. Hip hop, I learned about Malcolm X and so many different people, of our past listening to hip hop. Yep. In today's realm, we would have a political base to say, we're not putting our vote behind this one if they don't meet our needs. So hip hop was supposed to do all of that for us before it was co-opted and taken over by those who are only looking at monetary gain and to steer spiritual energy somewhere else to keep us stagnant in our growth and progression.
All right. And could you pinpoint exactly where that switch had happened?
To me, I felt I broke down my book in hip hop into paradigms. So the chaos realm of hip hop is before records. This is when it was just performances, Cold Crush Brothers, all of those guys. You had these tapes and it was no records. And then in 1979, Sugar Hill Gang, Kington III came out first, but the big record was the Sugar Hill Gang. So in 79, this brought an influx of us trying to move into records. You know what I'm saying? So that became, from chaos, we moved to order. Because once you put something on a record, it is now contained there. And they can play it as many times as they want. Don't play the record. Make people desire it. Your spiritual energy is encapsulated on this melanated disc, 360 degrees, melanated disc. And, that melanin spinning, creating vortexes and things of that nature. So it's a very spiritual process. And the point in which we put the record on became the nipple. So, you know what I'm saying? So that's the nipple. And we began to give birth. And then in 89, so 79 and then 89, NWA showed up, right? And when NWA showed up, not their fault, they were giving you the story from their perspective, but they were based in Hollywood. And this became the template to move us from, Fighting the Power, Public Enemy, KRS One, Brand Nubian, X-Clan, Poor Righteous Teachers, Big Daddy Kane. We had such a variety of artists who gave us our total story. So we had Kool G Rap to give us street stories. We had Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince to give us fun hip hop. We had the Native Tongues and them to bring us a cultural aspect. We had Public Enemy giving us political. So we had a complete balance. We had the females, Queen Latifah, MC Light, Salt and Pepper. And then when NWA came in, it was such a contrast to what we were doing on the East Coast that at that point, to me, that was a shift. And in that shift, we started hearing more violence. We started hearing more degradation of the women. We started now, but it was musically, it was amazing. I got to give Dr. Dre his credit and understanding that music is the only thing that can enter our subconscious mind without our permission. We are music, right? So because harmonically, his music was so amazing, those messages were almost overlooked. You know what I mean? And then the next shift, in my humble opinion, was 99 when Eminem showed up. Because white America had been trying for years, to get artists that we could accept. Now, there was third base, they could rap. Beastie Boys, to me, made a mockery of hip hop. We'll talk about that in a few.
Okay.
And there were a few other artists, but it wasn't until Eminem showed up, because Eminem actually respected hip hop. He
Of course.
understood the culture, and now they had somebody that they could put their money behind, who would amass more sales and really bring it to America in the mainstream, because white American executives were having a hard time because their sons had these pictures up of black people on their wall that they admired.
Yeah.
And that was really bothering them. But now they could put Eminem up on their wall. And even though he was speaking from his perspective, trailer park, this, that, and that, it still resonated more with Europeans. And so those are some of the shifts. And every 10 years, we get some shifts in the culture. So that's how I kind of break down the paradigm shifts.
Okay, it's generally, I guess it's in 10-year increments is where everything switches. So it's fast and slow at the exact same time. So it's subtle enough where you don't notice a switch until you get to that time where it's completely switched over.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great analogy, because they look 10 years ahead. We don't. Yeah. We look in 2 weeks ahead, most black people. Mm-hmm. And so they're looking ahead, and because they can plan ahead, we gradually move right where they want us to move. And, it has led to so many confusion, and we don't own the very culture that we walk and talk every day.
Yeah, that's crazy to even think about that, because I remember growing up, I grew up more around the Big Daddy Kane eras, the BDPs, all of that stuff there. So I know the transition that you're talking about, but it's crazy where it was really underground to where it's running the world right now. That was crazy. And we're talking about probably in a 30-year window. And in relatively 30 years is not a long time.
It's not. It's like that. Yeah. And also, hip hop is the universal language now, meaning wherever I go in the world, if I speak hip hop, I'm accepted amongst the people. Mm-hmm. And it is the only genre of music that encapsulates all of the music that came before it. You can make an opera out of hip hop. You can make jazz. You can do all of these. So it's the crystallized, stone that sits on top of the pyramid, in my humble opinion. So all of the other art forms came before them. They can't use other art forms the way hip hop can. Hip hop can take an opera and chop it up and throw some hard tracks. And if it's hot, it's hot. Yeah. So it is, the super music in a sense. And if you speak the language of hip hop, not necessarily English, because hip hop is not a verbal language per se. Mm-hmm. It's a swag, it's a walk, it's a talk, it's a feeling. Energy. Yeah. And I can go to Iraq, and if they do hip hop and they see I'm hip hop, I'm almost treated damn near like a dignitary. Yeah, you know what I mean? So that's very interesting. So they knew that this energy was coming, so they had to get in front of it. Mm-hmm. The ones who are trying to control it and make sure that it never really reaches its full potential.
Yeah. And do you feel like they've basically weaponized hip hop right now?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because if you take away our ability to use the spoken word in its proper context, the geometry of words, cracking different codes, and you funnel us into talking about negative stuff. Women ain't this, crime, drugs. If you funnel creativity, then it's not really creativity. You're replicating what somebody else has already created a template for. Creativity has to be able to express itself however it feels. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, we continue to open up new paradigms and set a template for the generation to come behind us to take it to new heights. But because they're controlling it, they are the gatekeepers. They control and funnel it. They can say, nope, we only sign in this. We only sign in that. So then you'll have a genius, young man or young woman, who really wants to do this, but they got to do this so they can make a little money and get on. And they're stunting and stagnating their spiritual growth in doing so.
That's right. But with the advent of the internet now, where it's more DTC, direct to consumer, opposed to where you have to go through all the channels of the record labels, are there still gatekeepers in the industry, or you figure it's a more, if you could skip over that and go straight to the consumers?
Well, see, that's the illusion. We get the illusion that you can just go to the internet and be independent, but they got there 2 steps ahead of us.
Yeah.
So all the Spotify's and all the companies, all that they do is go one paradigm ahead of us. And when we get there, we think we are arriving at a new place, and it's a place they already laid the foundation for. Now, that is not to say that there are not independent artists who can use the internet, but this generation is not after fortune, they after fame.
This podcast is brought to you by www.twolinedmusichut.com.